I started making gear when I was, real young. I would hand turn my mother's sewing machine. She wouldn't let me run it by power. I would hand turn my mother's sewing machine and make bean bags. I've been playing around with sewing machines ever since. But it's only recently that I have gotten back into a do-it-yourself gear mode. And part of what I want to do is help you get past the intimidation that you can feel when you sit in front of that machine, looking at it, wondering if you're going to be able to control it. To my mess. There's a running joke on hammockforums.net, which is that we don't sew, we make gear. Now, that's kind of a joke amongst us guys who want to kind of distance ourselves from the sewing idea. But there really is a lot of truth to it. If you go pick up a sewing book, you're going to get a lot of tailoring, you're going to get a lot of dressmaking, you're going to get a lot of things that you don't need to make gear. Not that making gear is any less fascinating than putting clothing together, but the techniques are a little bit different. Some of them are the same, and that's what we're going to be looking at. So in this series, you're not going to learn how to become a tailor. You're not going to learn how to put together garments. You're going to learn how to use a sewing machine and what the basic parts of putting fabric together are. And for that, we're going to make gear. What we're going to be looking at. Woven fabrics, meaning nylons, polyesters. Those are the primary fabrics that are used in gear making. We're not going to be doing that much with the natural fabrics because they tend to rot outside in the outdoors. We're also not going to be looking at the non-woven fabrics, things like Tyvek. I frankly don't know that much about them. But the other thing is that when you're starting a do-it-yourself program, you're going to want to use the cheapest material that you can find. And quite frankly, that is the woven materials, which sometimes you can get for $1.50 a yard. Sometimes cheaper than that. You can cut up old shirts, you can cut up old sheets, you can scrounge fabric anywhere you want. It doesn't matter where you get it. But when you start talking about really expensive fabric, I think that's well beyond the point at which you're a beginning do-it-yourselfer. To some degree, that means that we'll be looking at individual parts. Sometimes we'll be looking at whole pieces. Sometimes we'll be focusing on specific techniques. Sometimes we'll be focusing on troubleshooting. A variety of things that we're going to be looking at. Some definitions out of the way. A hem is used for finishing off what is called a raw edge. That's an edge that has been cut or torn. It's the edge of the piece of gear. And you hem it for basically two reasons. One is to keep it from raveling, and the other is to give it some strength and some stability. A seam, on the other hand, is anything that joins more than two pieces of fabric together. And there are many different kinds of seams used in many different kinds of ways. But that is the one thing that a seam has in common. They always join more than one piece of fabric. We're going to be looking at different ways of putting in draw cord channels. We're going to be looking at putting on bindings, putting on edgings. We're going to be looking at things that are commonly used in making gear.